Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
Yeah, well, the hockey season started yesterday, I guess, or 2 days ago. There's some preseason games, which I can't be bothered to watch.
No, they were talking about it on the radio station here yesterday, saying, like, tell us what you're going to look for in preseason. I'm like, I'll tell you what I'm going to look for in preseason. Nothing. I'm not watching it. I mean, come on, you know?
Agreed.
The Skip and Josh podcast is on now.
Hey, how's it going?
Wait a minute. Hey, how's it going? You don't know who it is yet.
Well, considering it's this early in the morning and we had a scheduled call, I knew that it was you.
Okay, yeah. Not as early as last time, though. At least it's a normal time of day.
We're still committed. We're recording these in the morning because our schedules are just not matching up these days.
They're not. They're really not.
You know, we're committed to getting these once-a-week NFL recaps out, out to the listeners in a timely fashion.
Because how will people set their fantasy rosters and pick their games if they don't hear from us?
100%. 100% true.
Actually, if you followed my picks this week, you're in really bad shape. I had the worst week ever in our Skip and Josh podcast pool.
Right.
I only had 3 games right. If you looked at it, you would have thought, did Josh forget to make his picks until there were 3 games left in the week? That's what it looks like.
Now, you know that every Monday I listen to the Bill Simmons version of this podcast, which is like, they recap the week. But what they do is they guess the lines, right? They have a real gambling focus on that episode every week. And they've been doing it for like more than 5 years or even 10. It's been going on forever. And the cousin Sal, the gambler of the two of the group, basically said that it was a really weird week for gambling and that there was a lot of home underdogs, which was, he said, it was like ringing like alarm bells for him at the start of the week because there was like 10 home underdogs. So he knows right away that something's out of whack. And also there was all the pretty much, you've been picking a lot by picking favorites even to cover. I think that's been your method. And that was the complete opposite of what happened this week because most of the favorites lost. Yeah, they didn't. Vast majority.
Not only did they not cover, they didn't even win. Yeah,
exactly. It was a terrible, terrible week for the favorites. And I think as we get into the episode and we start going over the games, we're going to see it was a weird week overall in that, like, we thought we knew after 2 weeks who was good and who was bad. And we really don't have any idea.
You never know. No one ever knows anything.
Yeah,
that's the rule number 1. But what's interesting, so despite my lousy week in our pick'em pool, the 4 of us were all separated by 4 points.
I know, it's anybody's game now.
Yeah, so
I'm happy we closed the gap. So this week everybody's been talking about the same thing. I mean, it was a fascinating week of football in that we had the president and the hashtag take a knee and all kinds of politics mixing with sports. And if you turn on any sports radio, TV, talk show, podcast, that's all they're going to be talking about. So I wanted to make it clear that we're not going to talk about that.
No.
No, we are going to talk about what we want to talk about, which is the actual sport. Right. And I know it sounds weird, and I know people are going to say, how could they not talk about it? It's like the main thing.
People have heard enough about it already, I think.
People have heard enough about it, but along that vein, in that people have heard enough about it, it's so many times we've alluded to our first episode, and it's great. We're coming up on, it's in around less than a month, it's the year anniversary of our podcast, or around a month. I think it was the first week of November. Mm-hmm. We allude several times to our first episode, which is podcast therapy. One of the rationales for wanting to do this podcast was for me and you to talk about what we love to talk about and get stuff off our chest and feel good about what we talk about and have a good time doing it, right? And talking about all that politics just makes me angry. So that's the opposite of podcast therapy. That's not what I want to talk about,
Perfect. By the way, is our anniversary the day that we released our first episode or the day that we recorded our first episode?
I don't know. I think we're going to have to figure that out.
Because it's not the same day.
No, it's definitely not the same day. And then just continuing in the vein of what I was saying, sports and politics, like they shouldn't be mixing. You know, like the reason why we go to the sporting events and we watch the sporting events is to escape from all the garbage in our lives. Like, everybody's dealing with something. Everybody has something that they're dealing with in their life. Mental health, physical health, work stress, finance, you know, everybody has something. And it's amazing. It's fabulous to be able to sit down on the couch on Sunday afternoon and watch 3 hours of football with your son, which is what I did.
Or in my case, watch no football at all.
And have a nap. Perfect. Right? Or in this case, get up early and record at 8 o'clock in the morning so we can talk about, you know, the sport that we like, right? Or what's on our mind. So without further ado, let's get into like the recap of week 3 and look ahead at week 4.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah. What do you got for me? Anything? Last time you prompted me with some good questions.
Well, I have really only 2 games that I want to talk about. I mean, we can talk about as many as you want, but I want to know what the reaction was in your household when Darren Sproles went down with 2 injuries on the same play.
Well, it's funny because we knew he was out, we knew he was injured, but during the game we didn't know the extent of it, right? You just they never tell you like how bad it is during the game. And actually the Eagles suffered a whole bunch of injuries during the game. I think they had 5 defensive starters out by the time the fourth quarter rolled around.
That's every game.
Yeah, well, that's every game in a way. But yesterday I got all the alerts about Darren Sproles, and then, you know, Matthew texted me from school, and he's like, "Did you see about Sproles?" I'm like, I just feel bad for the guy, you know, like he's been around forever. He's such a great player, even at his age, and basically he's going to retire now. You know, this is how he's going out, you know, and it sucks.
Yeah, and a lot of players end their careers not the way they want to end their careers, especially in the sport of football. So, I mean, this year, I don't know, I felt like, and I don't have any actual concrete, you know, evidence, but it feels like anecdotally there's a lot more injuries in every game for every team this season.
I think there is also, yeah.
By the end of the season, the rosters that you're going to see are going to be completely different than the rosters you saw, you know, in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, look, injuries are always a part of every sport, but I feel like I agree. We don't have numbers to back it up, but like you said, anecdotally, it does seem like every game guys are going down. Like during the fourth quarter of that Eagles-Giants game, I was saying to my son, like, what's with the Eagles defense? Like, Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, is so aggressive all the time. He throws blitzes like 2/3 of the time. And the defense was so passive in the fourth quarter. And that's when the Giants made it look really easy and Eli Manning was just marching down the field. And I was like, what's going on? Why are they playing so passive? And then I realized, like, Fletcher Cox isn't in the game. Jordan Hicks isn't in the game. Well, they were already missing, like, half their corners. Like, so the defensive personnel wasn't the same. And I think the coaching staff was doing their best to just kind of tread water, you know, and hope for a miracle, which is what they got in that 61-yard field goal.
Yeah. At least, by the way, the Eagles, one of the few favorite teams that actually won this weekend.
So there's only 2 undefeated teams.
Okay, and who are they?
Kansas City.
Yeah.
And Atlanta.
Well, Kansas City doesn't surprise me. Atlanta does surprise me, as you know. And I was going to talk about that Atlanta game in a second. So do you want to talk about it now?
Yeah, sure, please.
I mean, you have to explain this rule to me. I don't know if you saw the very end of the Lions game, the Lions-Falcons game.
I felt so bad for the Lions.
The Lions got hosed, and that is the dumbest rule I've ever heard in my entire life, I think, in any sport.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's true the Falcons are undefeated, but who knows what would have happened if they actually were able to run that fourth down play.
Oh, my God. It was crazy because the end of the Eagles game was coming up exactly the same time as the Lions game. So we're flipping back and forth really quickly, but we didn't want to miss any of the Eagles. And then I saw the catch by Golden Tate, and I was like, oh, my God, the Lions won. So then we switched back to the Eagles, and we never went back to the Lions. And then, like, literally, like, 15 minutes later, I was like, oh, the Lions didn't win. What happened? You know? And then, obviously, I went back and I read and I saw what happened, and they really got hosed. Like, it doesn't...
I mean, like, so they score the touchdown, which they disallow, and they review the play, which they should. But at that moment, while they're reviewing the play, or at the moment that he crosses the goal line, or supposedly crosses it, shouldn't the clock stop right then and there?
No, because if he's down at the 1, the clock keeps going.
Okay, but then if they're reviewing it, don't they need to stop the clock while they're reviewing it?
If they're reviewing it, they stop the clock while they're reviewing it. But then what happens is they mark the ball down at the 1. They review it, and then they come back and they say, no. We're going to resume the play at the 1 yard line. So they put the ball down at the 1 yard line, and then the clock starts. But the thing is, both teams would be already lined up, and they'd be able to get a playoff within 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, if there was no unofficial timeout for the review, what would have happened? All the players would have had to run up to the line. So the play would have took more than 2 seconds, right?
Okay, but they had like 10.
Yes. Well, the rule is there's a 10-second runoff, which in hindsight now looks like a stupid rule because it's clear that they can go from the 7-yard line to the 1 yard line and get a playoff within 10 seconds. Everybody and their grandmother knows that they can do that, right?
Right.
But yet the rule is 10-second runoff. So I feel like the Lions feel like they completely got penalized for doing nothing other than completing a pass and then having a challenge that, they didn't even, the whole thing didn't make sense. They really got screwed.
They did. And so the Falcons are undefeated, but I'm going to put a little asterisk next to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the Falcons are playing in week 4, the Falcons are playing the Bills. And the Falcons are at home, and Falcons, as you know, are a very strong team at home. And Bills, yes. Look, they won this week. I'm not a believer in the Bills, so it looks like the Falcons are going to continue to be undefeated, right?
Yeah, I don't understand how the Bills actually beat the Broncos. There were so many games that I didn't understand this weekend.
It was nutty. Just like I said in the opening, just when we thought we kind of knew who was good and who was bad, all of a sudden, like the 49ers and the Rams had a barn burner on Thursday. I don't think any of those teams are good, but the 49ers showed like a little bit of something at least. The Ravens, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, let's give a shout out to our expert Neil Schnurback, who said before the season started that the Jaguars could be a good team.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, they're 2-1 and they just destroyed the Ravens 44-7.
Yeah. And then the coach of the Ravens, typical Harbaugh fashion, he's kind of blaming the fact that they went to London to play, kind of not picking up on the fact that the other team was also in London. Mm-hmm. So don't really get that.
Yeah, football coaches are going to use any excuse they can find.
Yeah. And then, the Jets, who looked like they were completely hopeless, actually won a game. The Bills, who looked like they were completely hopeless, beat the Broncos, who looked dynamite the week before in destroying the Cowboys. So, there's no rhyme or reason to anything. And then the craziest one of all...
And the Bears beat the Steelers. The Bears are terrible.
They're terrible, but I think they got overhyped as a really terrible team because they've been in every game and they look fairly solid. So I really feel like their coaching staff is really elevating their play. Did you see that play where they returned a turnover all the way for a touchdown and the guy a la Don Beebe in the Super Bowl, he fumbled the ball?
What an idiot. He didn't fumble the ball. He just stopped running.
They knocked it out of his hand at the 1 yard line, right? That's what I'm
so glad you mentioned this. He just stopped running. First of all, why do you stop running? Have you not seen other idiots do this? Was it your son's favorite player when he was on the Eagles? What's his name?
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson.
Jackson.
I don't know if... Yeah, exactly. Showboating, then you lose the ball. It's complete nonsense.
What do you have to gain by doing that? You're right
Nothing.
there. Just keep running. You're such an idiot. That guy, you know what? I would have cut him the next morning.
He actually had a really bad game too. He's the safety and or a corner, I'm not sure. And I saw him in the highlights, like a pass interference and a key situation. And, so look, good on the Bears, right? I don't know how they're doing it, but
good for them for winning that game. But I mean,
I know, but I mean, it shouldn't have been close, because
that
they settled for a
idiot.
field goal. That in that possession, they got a field goal instead of the touchdown that they should have had.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And then, the other shocker, not so much of a shocker, but the Texans just gave the Patriots everything they could. I was really happy to see Deshaun Watson just have a great game, and I'm happy because I was rooting for this guy. I want him to do well, and he really looks like he's going to be a player.
I'm surprised how close that game was. I am shocked.
I don't think the Patriots are as good as everybody thought. Remember the beginning of the year? People were saying, are the Patriots going to be undefeated?
No, I never thought they were going to be undefeated, but...
But there was some people I heard on the radio, can the Patriots go undefeated? I was like, what kind of nonsense is that? And then, of course, they lose in week 1, and they haven't looked great at all. To be honest, they really haven't looked great, so...
And the Vikings won a game with their backup QB.
Yeah, I mean...
Against a decent Tampa Bay team.
Again... Nobody knows anything because
you know nothing, Jon Snow.
People thought Tampa Bay is going to be one of the up and comers, and they're just going to be an average team. You know?
And Jacoby Brissett looked good for the Colts.
Jacoby Brissett, he did one play, and my son saw it in the highlights. He looks like Michael Vick 2.0. He was like shimmying and shaking in the backfield and shedding tacklers and running for touchdowns. So,
So what, the Colts are going to trade Andrew Luck now when he comes off the IR?
You never know. Imagine. That would be crazy.
Who knows if he's ever coming off the IR?
And then in the other shock, the Redskins, what the hell?
Yeah, that also surprised me that they actually won a game. Now, it was in Washington, so that's a bit of an advantage because Oakland had to travel all the way, or the Raiders, I should say, had to travel all the way from the West Coast.
I read an article this week that said that home field advantage in the NFL has been completely overblown. I have to find it.
It might be a little overblown, but when you're a West Coast team traveling east or an East Coast team traveling west, it does take a bit of a toll on you. Although I'm not one of those that uses travel as an excuse in any sport.
No, it shouldn't be. Like you said, these guys, we had Joe on the show in one of the first 10 episodes, and he told us about how it was flying on the Buffalo Sabres plane.
They
it's
travel
not like a regular
kings.
Yeah. So, whatever. Well, look, I'm not really surprised because I told you at the beginning I thought the Raiders were going to be good, but I still didn't think they were a great team. And football, there's so much parity now. I think anybody could beat anybody, and you have to execute. You have to execute your game plan. If you make mistakes, if you take stupid penalties, or there's bad turnovers, that's what decides the game. That's literally what decides the game. One pass interference call, and that could decide the game. Or one bad holding, or one, poorly thrown interception. That the games are that close that, one play could make the big difference.
So you mentioned there's only 2 undefeated teams left. There are 5 teams that are winless still.
Yeah,
and that's the Giants are 0-3, the Browns are 0-3, the Bengals are 0-3, the Chargers are 0-3, although their games are at least close.
And the 49ers.
And the 49ers are 0-3, although they almost won that game on Thursday.
They almost did. And I think the 49ers are going to hold their own in most games. Whether they're going to come up with wins or not, I don't know. But, they're going to hold their own. So who's most likely to get a win out of those teams?
Out of those teams?
Let's look and see who they're playing.
I'm going to go... overall, I think the best of those teams is the Chargers. I don't think they're as bad as their record shows.
Yeah. Well, they have the Eagles this week, so I'm going to be rooting hard against them.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. I don't think they're as bad as their record shows. The 49ers are playing the Cardinals in Arizona, so they'll have a shot.
That's a toss-up.
They'll have a shot. And look, the Cardinals didn't look great last night against the Cowboys, so the 49ers certainly have a shot. And the Bengals should have beat the Packers this week. They've got the Browns, so barring a tie, someone's going to get a win.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. One of the winless teams is going to get a win.
I wouldn't be surprised if they could finish in a tie. Don't you think?
That would be fitting for them.
It would be great. I think it could happen. So just to update you on the Cleveland Watch.
The Cleveland Watch?
Yeah, the Indians have 2 losses in the month of September.
Oh, okay.
And now the Browns have 3.
Well, there you go. And there's not many days left in the month.
Major League Baseball, they've only got 6 games to go.
No, but you don't understand. The Browns' next game is in October.
Oh, yeah. The Browns' next game is in October. So, yeah, the Indians can only afford to lose 1 game if they want to stay level with the Browns. They got to win.
I think the Indians can pull it off.
Well, they've only lost 2 games in the whole month of September, which is and before that too, because the streak started in August, right?
So at what point do they start resting their starters?
I'm sure they are already. There's only 7 games to go, so they must be. I'm looking forward to those baseball playoffs. I can't wait. I think they're going to be epic.
Yeah. We'll have to do a baseball playoff preview show.
Yeah, I'm sure we definitely will do that for sure.
Do they call it playoffs? They call it postseason in baseball.
Oh God, it's just like the stupid grammar police with are you going to All-Star? Hey Josh, are you going to All-Star?
All-Star what?
Exactly. So did they just call it MLB the postseason or the postseason or postseason?
I think it's just MLB postseason.
I can live with that, I guess. Yeah. So what's happening in your fantasy football?
Well, one of my players is Darren Sproles, so I need to replace him.
Oh God. Well, he wasn't doing that much anyways, to be honest. you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, I didn't start him this past week, but he was on my roster, so now I got to worry about that.
Well, I mean, I got to tell you that so far the fantasy football most valuable player is Kareem Hunt on the Chiefs. He had another monster day.
Has that propelled you to 3-0? I'm 3-0.
It has propelled me to 3-0. It was a very interesting situation last night. I went into the game last night ahead, I think, by one or two. And I had Larry Fitzgerald, and the guy I was playing had Des Bryant.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, so it's a challenge. It's like a challenge game. So, for most of the game, it looked great because for the longest time, Des Bryant had one catch for -3, like all the way into like fairly deep into the game. And I was like, oh God, okay. I'm like holding on. Fitzgerald, he had a few points. He had a few catches, so I opened up a little bit of a lead. But then at one point, Des caught a touchdown, and then and then all of a sudden I was trailing. But in the end, I ended up winning easily because Des really didn't catch anything after that, and Larry Fitzgerald ended up with a whole bunch of more catches and yards and a touchdown, I think. So I ended up winning easily. Des Bryant, he's really a shell of himself. I don't know if it's Dak Prescott as the quarterback that doesn't know how to actually throw to wide receivers like more than 10 yards down the field, or is Des not as good as he was? I'm not 100% sure.
Well, hold on, because I saw Dez's touchdown last night where he literally took 5 guys with him. I don't understand how any one player can take 5 guys on his back or his front and actually cross the
Carry
goal
them
line.
in.
That was insane.
I mean, that was great. So, I know I'm saying, is Des still good? He's still a huge man, right? He's still a big guy with tons of power. But, I just don't know. Maybe the chemistry with him and Prescott, it's not there. So, I mean, that was just a 5-yard pass, and he basically willed his way into the end zone.
He
right?
did. He really did. So the site that I use for my fantasy football league it's cbssports.com. I have to say it's pretty good. They have all these extra features that I've never seen before on any other website. One of them is I don't know who does it. I don't know if it's a computer or whatever, but after every week there's a recap of the week. It looks like someone wrote an article. And it's not like the commissioner of the league or anything. It's like the website that does it. So you read the article. It sounds like a legitimate article that you'd read in the newspaper. Oh, like Pete Waiters, they moved to 3-0 on the strength of so-and-so's excellent game.
Yahoo's doing the same thing. It's remember I used to write the recaps back in the day?
Yeah, it's exactly that.
The Yahoo pool's doing the same thing. I'm going to get a little article saying how my team did and also how I did against the projection and all kinds of stuff like that.
The other feature that they have, and I put feature in quotations, is they have, of course, the standings, but they also have the power rankings.
So how's it going in the power rankings? Who's up there?
Well, I'm 3-0, and I'm...
Oh, power rankings of your league.
Yes. This is what I'm talking about.
That is so stupid. Power rankings, as you said, I'm going to use one of your terms, also known as the standings.
Right, except it's not because according to the standings, I'm the best team, right?
Mm-hmm.
According to power rankings, I'm the second best team.
But is the team that's number 1 in the power rankings also undefeated, or you're tied, or?
I'll check for you in a second.
I mean, there's only been 3 games, right? So
yeah, no, they're also the other teams also, but they've scored a lot more points.
Okay.
I've won with smoke and mirrors.
So that's why they have the power rankings to debunk the fact that you're actually good.
Right. Exactly.
Have you seen the power rankings in the NHL come out?
Have they come out?
I'm sure they have. I'm just wondering if you've looked.
I haven't seen. But since you mentioned the NHL, this is a football episode. Remember how pessimistic I was about the Canadian season in July? Yeah. I told you that they'd make the playoffs and lose in the first round. So
it's just the preseason.
I know, but I'm even more pessimistic today than I was in July.
Well, I mean, they haven't won a preseason game, and they've looked pathetic in all of them.
Yeah.
So it's pretty ugly, to be honest.
I mean, Carey Price is going to have to get a lot of shutouts if the Canadians are going to win games.
That we're teasing the hockey episodes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
why not? Let's do it. All right, so do you have any more football talk or anything that got your attention in this past week?
No, we talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. You got anything else?
No, I mean, I loved watching the Eagles game. It was great so far. All the Eagles games have been on TV without any trouble for me. each week. I don't know if they're going to be on this week against the Chargers. We'll have to see. It might be a little tricky. Have you talked to anybody who's subscribing to DAZN, or actually as it's pronounced, DAZN?
Is it DAZN? I thought it was DAZN.
It's DAZN, but I'm pronouncing it DAZN because that's how it's spelled.
I think there's only one person I know that subscribes to it, but he works with me, and I haven't been to the office in a while, so so I haven't heard anything good or bad about it.
I mean, I told you on Twitter it was a firestorm of hate against them. Like, everyone was saying how bad it was.
Right, but I think that's quieted down a bit. I think they've worked out their kinks, maybe.
Yeah, Matthew told me that he met a kid in his driving class that had it, and he told him that it was working perfectly for him.
The fact that you talked about Matthew in driving class is hilarious. Because to me, Matthew's still a kid, so I don't grasp that concept.
Well, me too. Believe it or not. I mean, more than if you're feeling that, can you imagine me and his mom? His mom's like, she's already such a nervous driver and passenger already. I don't know. Oh God.
Hilarious.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So next episode, not sure. We're gonna try to do another NFL preview.
We will do.
Our schedules are tough. I know our schedules are tough. I know yours is crazy right now,
especially the next week or two.
Yeah. So we'll try to do another NFL episode again at the same time this week. And then we're also working on our NHL preview, which should come out soon as well.
Yeah.
So before we sign off, remember you can listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or the podcast app of your choice. For example, I use a great app called Overcast. And if you listen through the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. We would love to hear from you via email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, via Twitter @skipandjosh, or by liking and following our Facebook page. And as always, you can get all the links that I just mentioned on our website, skipandjosh.com. I do have something that I forgot to tell you.
What's that?
Listener mail.
Oh, we got listener mail.
We're the only show presently in production that cares enough about you, the North American home viewer, to answer our viewer mail on the air.
We have a avid listener, Sabrina from New York, a friend of mine, a work colleague and good friend. And while she knows me very well, and she knows that a lot of people call me Skip, I mean, I explained that to her a long time ago, it was a bit confused about your name. In that, the show is called the Skip and Josh podcast, but how come I'm always calling you Cub or Cubby?
Because no one calls me Josh.
Yeah. So, if I think a lot of people call me Skip, it's 10 times more people that call you Cub, or 50 times more. Like, yeah. Cub should almost be like on your driver's license, like McLovin.
Or here's McLovin, the 25-year-old Hawaiian organ donor. Okay, so what's it going to be?
I am McLovin.
I'm gonna go to the DMV and get that changed today.
So I thought it was interesting when she mentioned it to me. I was like, you know what? For people who don't really know us that well, or new to the show, or like, they must be wondering what's going on. So I just thought I'd explain, like a little bit about like the naming situation. So I'm Skip, and you're Cub, also known as Josh.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think you've explained it very eloquently.
Okay, thanks.
But if any other listeners are confused, they can contact me directly, and I'd be happy to explain it further.
Oh, wonderful. Great. All right. I'll speak to you next time.
All right. Have a good week.
Thanks, Cubby.
Thanks, Skip.
Bye.
The Skip and Josh podcast is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.